Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. Today is the Monday Mailbag edition. Shay, are you excited to answer? We have 17 questions. Are you excited to get through them?
We'll do speed dating with the posters here. We're not spinning forever at each table. Yes, we can go fast with it. 17 is that's the healthiest dose we've taken yet. So
Yeah, I feel like no, that was I was about to get way off topic. I was gonna say I feel like speed dating was like a thing like 15 years ago, and it's just never happens anymore. Not that I would know, but
you should know. You're
I,
like 20 something.
I know, no, I mean I wouldn't know like what happened 15 years ago. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, got it, got
Like I
it,
feel like
got
there
it.
were
Yeah,
like
they've
hubs
got
15 years
apps.
ago where you
The
just
kids
show
are
up
all
and
on
you
the apps.
All right. Well, we have questions from the board. Again, if you want to send questions in, you can become a subscriber for $1 for an entire year. For those who have sent in questions, we thank all of you. We have your names on here this time, so we'll be able to properly attribute the questions. Let's get this thing started with we knew we were going to get a lot of offensive line questions, but let's start with does Emory Jones stay at right tackle? Asks Captain Planet 246.
No doubt, right? I mean, he played well, was a highly graded offensive lineman, offensive tackle across the SEC. I think I saw someone on the board had posted that, or maybe it was on Twitter. Cody Warstrom, I think, may have posted that Will Campbell was the highest graded offensive tackle in the SEC this week, and that Emory Jones was fourth. And that's a pair of true freshmen, which LSU confirmed was the first time ever in program history that two true freshmen have started at the two tackle spots in the same game. So yeah, I would think you want to keep that rolling, right?
I think so too. If it's not broke, don't fix
And
it at this point.
and
I mean,
Emory
Anthony
Jones played
Bradford.
tackle.
Go
Emory
ahead.
Jones played tackle in high school. So, at Catholic these past years, I know that he was ranked and recruited as an interior guy, an offensive guard, but he can play tackle.
Yeah, and I'm interested though in how adding Anthony Bradford back changes, if it does change anything. Will he bump out Miles Frazier, or will they just keep the same five in there? But I think we have that question coming later, so let's save that. How is Jayden Daniels? How is Jayden Daniels? He seemed gimpy mid third quarter on. Asks LSU alignment. Great name.
I
I'm
no doubt he's fine, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
see, I mean, seemed fine. Post game,
we
seemed
saw him
fine.
after the game.
I mean, he
He
just
had a
had the
bunch of
giant
cuts.
freaking
Yeah,
cut on his head.
he had a couple cuts down his head. He said he didn't know how that happened. He got hit at some point, he thought, and came off and was bleeding. But yeah, he seemed fine. And Brian Kelly probably called him, gritty and tough 15 times in the press conference after. So clearly, what y'all saw on TV or in the stadium was what kind of was happening for them during the game and on the sidelines, and in terms of him kind of getting beaten up and just moving through it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how this offense is going to be. It's going to be relied on him being tough, making plays, like that touchdown run where he just kind of muscled it in. So yeah, but he seemed fine. All right, next question. Why not use Jack Bech in the passing role he is using Mason Taylor in, since Bech is way more dynamic as Tiger Gabe? And I think I wrote about this a little bit. I mean, I wrote about them not using Jack Bech after the Florida State game, right? That was my whole thing. I was like, they're going to need Jack Bech more and more, and I still believe that to a degree. The reason they're using Mason Taylor is because I think they want the threat of having him as a blocker at all times. Even though when he's flanked out, we've seen them motion him in, to one of these run packages to where he's crashing across or he's just coming in to help the run game. My problem is I don't think he's a very good run blocker at this point in his career. And so with that being the case, yeah, I would love to see Bech in his role a lot more, because I don't think it's a conventional tight end role. I mean, it's not like Mason Taylor is lined up with his hand in the dirt off the edge of the tackle 80% of the time. He's just not. He's flanked out a lot. So I would love to see Bech in that role, but they seem to think Mason Taylor can do that very well, even though he had a game where he had one reception and there were 6 targets to him. So I think Bech would be better there personally.
Nope, I'm with you, but I'm also with you in the sense that Denbrock, someone who wants to use tight ends in his offense, is sort of committed at this stage, at least it seems, to the
Yes.
development of Mason Taylor over Jack Bech stealing those snaps just to get him on the field in some sort of pass catching role. Like I think if Denbrock's like, hey, if we want to get him into a pass catching role, then I'm keeping him a receiver and I'm just putting him in the game. And he's played some, and there's been kind of some videos that have gone around and people who've watched the game saw it, but where, you shared even a GIF, I think, Matty B, during the game of kind of a couple of routes where Daniels had people open, and Bech was one of those guys once again.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been out there. His target share is just 2 targets in 3
Plummeted.
games, and he's caught both of them and has a touchdown. So it's far off from, I don't expect Butte or Neighbors numbers. They're at 19 and 16 targets, right? And he's at 2. I don't expect that. I do expect him to be closer to the
Ray.
Jenkins, Thomas, Mason Taylor crowd, who are all sitting at 9, 10, 12, 13 targets than he is. So 2 is wildly low. You would have to think that changes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who led LSU in receiving a year ago. Like, I know that they have a great receiver room, but it seems like everybody's kind of eating right now. You know what I'm saying? Except him. Like, Kyron Lacey has more targets than he does. So we'll kind of see how it pans out.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Thanks for your question. Let's see what else we got here. Why are we not utilizing our best personnel in punt and kick returns? No offense to Clayton, but he should not see more than the practice field at LSU, asked Tiger Gabe. You can go first on this one. I mean, you're the special teams guy on this podcast.
I'm definitely not. I'm only just the person who says what's good and bad each game. That's it. I'm just shooting it straight.
I mean,
I don't know.
I
I'm
feel
sure
like
there's coaching philosophies to play, right? I mean, like, I remember last year or at times during the Orgeron era when he would have Keishawn Butte out there doing stuff on special teams, like in coverage units, and people would throw their hands up and say, "Why are the best players out there? Put the backups. You're risking injury." And then when they do put, or when they're not putting the best players out there, we're complaining about. Not that I'm picking on Tiger Gabe here, but anybody who's looking on and saying, "Well, why is the walk-on receiver out of UTSA out there? Don't you have someone else that's sort of a happy medium?" I would think so, right? Like,
throw Jack
Clayton
Best
didn't even
back there
play
at this
special.
point.
Greg Clayton didn't even play special teams at UTSA.
Yeah.
And he's been out of high school for a while now. So, like, it's not like he was some dude who they like brought in from the portal that was like, oh man, he's got a lot of experience returning punts. So
Yeah.
I would have to think there's that search for a punt returner can't be over, right? Like, if Malik Neighbors got benched, who's infinitely
More
I
talented.
don't know about infinite. I'm not going to say that. He's
I'll say
clearly
it.
better. He's clearly a better. Yeah,
I'll say it.
He's clearly a better punt returner than Greg Clayton, or he wouldn't have been starting the first week, right? Like, if 2 muff punts for him gets him pulled for good, that's questionable to me because Greg Clayton has now fielded a ball at the 1 basically and dived on a loose ball that had no business even being near in the second half of a really tight game that you're trying to come back and win. I don't know. My point being, this search for a punt returner has got to continue. Like, it can't just stop here.
I think they go back to Malik at some point.
Why
I don't know
not?
when. But I feel like they will. And to get to I think you made a good point. It's like when fans see the best players on special teams, a lot of times they're like, "Oh, why are we doing that?" For example, Alabama last year lost their receiver because he was a gunner on the punt coverage team. So it's like it's give or take. I think at times also it takes kind of a special player to be that type of Odell Beckham return man, to be that type of tyrant, that player. And I don't know if LSU has that type of player as far as punt and kick returner that can change the game. So if you don't have a guy that can change the game in that way, you just want someone that can catch the ball. So, next question. Is the O-line finally settled, or are more changes coming? Asked Mr. Virgo. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
You're betting you don't have great odds here. Or, like, they've had 3 opportunities to change it so far, and they've changed it to a different one each time. So you've got to make a hard stance here for answering yes.
Well, the thing is, against New Mexico, I think they're going to keep it the same. I think they keep it the same, and they roll with it again. They say, all right, we've seen it once. Now, obviously, this time it's going to be lesser competition, but we want to see it again. And so that way you have 2 games of film going forward. You obviously, plenty of guys will get reps, assuming the spread is like 29.5 right now. If they're up 28 going into the fourth quarter, you'll see plenty of guys come in and come out. I'm interested, and this is what I asked you: is do you think Anthony Bradford being back changes anything for this game and moving forward? Like, do you think he fights for one of those starting jobs on the right side?
I mean, he has to, right? Like if Anthony Bradford is back, he wasn't hurt. I mean, he was out there. He just was not. He was in, a jersey and sweatpants,
Yeah,
hanging out with a couple other guys. Um, We've heard buzz that it was sort of a one game deal, violation of team rules, kind of coach issued. You're sitting out of this one type of thing. So yeah, he was already starting. Like he started both games, right? The first
yeah,
two. So yes, you'd have to think he's going to be back in that mix. I don't, but I'm in the camp that they keep the same five starters. Like I
I
didn't
agree.
see anything so egregious to believe that you need to yank them. And in fact, I think those five guys have individually each played the best out of everyone of like all of my options. Like Bradford, Shorts,
Turner's the only one I don't
Wire.
know. I'd have to watch Turner. I have to
Okay.
watch Turner again whenever I watch the film today.
All right.
Um,
Well, so my point being is I
but yeah,
get like I don't have any glaring issues with anyone that's in the lineup right now, would be my point.
yes.
So now I went down there to the field before the game because I wanted to see, okay, is Bradford going to be out and what's it going to look like? And Emory Jones, Bradford was out. Emory Jones is at right tackle. True freshman, obviously, we talked about. And that was kind of the lineup the whole time. But they were working in Xavier Hill a good bit into the group. And word was or not word was, that was his first game back, kind of being available and dressed out after sitting out the first couple. So it seemed like they were ready to pull the trigger on Hill if they needed to. And he would probably be a guy. Actually, we've seen him at tackle and guard, but
Hmm.
I saw him working some at guard. So I don't know if kind of he and Miles Frazier would be the guys, and Bradford is who you're looking at the right guard spot, or if there's any more movement elsewhere. But the return of Xavier Hill, who has played some football for LSU in the past already. He started, he's come on off the bench, whatever it might be. He's a veteran in comparison to pretty much the rest of the group. I think he's a junior now. So that'd be the guy Hill and Bradford are kind of who I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah. All right. What are your plans for getting Jayden Daniels more comfortable enough to start letting the ball loose? Is it a trust issue with himself or the receivers? Asked Bayou Tiger 22. I I
I
feel like
have
it.
no plans for Daniels
Yeah, I
with the
don't.
staff.
The
I
thing
thought he was
is,
talking to me.
is Daniels. You want to obviously with any quarterback get some quick throws into him. Make it easy, make the reads easy for him, and so that's what we'll see if that continues or how they continue to evolve that because Florida State and Mississippi State played them very differently. So I'm interested in moving forward to see how they do it. I think he's getting a little bit more comfortable, but I think it's just his nature still at this point to not force things. I think he's really scared of making the mistakes and turning the ball over, which he did at Arizona State last year, and I believe the year before. Like the last 2 years, he's turned the ball over more than he's wanted to. This year, to this point, he hasn't thrown a pick. So you go through that stretch and you go through the offseason where you are the best runner, and if you can just not throw the ball away, then I think he won the quarterback job, and I think he's going to be fine moving forward. So I think there's a little bit of hesitancy within himself to make those tight throws, but also at times I think he's missing guys as far as finding the receivers. So it's a catch-22. But like I said on the last podcast, I did not have a problem with how he played at all against Mississippi State. I mean, he's going to make some throws, he's going to miss some throws. So we go from there.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's probably, and you kind of touched on it. It's two things. I think if we're talking about Daniels and maybe what's going through his head as he processes things during the game, or just kind of how he develops across the season. When you've been a 3-year starter at Arizona State, where you're getting beaten some games, you're in tight games, you blow out some bad comp, whatever it might be. You don't have the talent around you that you do at LSU. And as you said, he was having to make a lot of plays, throwing picks, having to force things. And I think that here he got coached up this offseason well enough to where these few games he's played are three of the best games he's got in terms of statistical kind of efficiency, a balance of run pass, not turning the ball over, and he started 30-something college games. So I think they've coached him into a spot where, yes, okay, he's comfortable and all that, but I think he now senses the second point is he doesn't fully grasp how much talent they've got right at receiver yet. And I think he knows how much talent they have, but to really trust him, like the third down or that was actually fourth down to Malik Neighbors where they just went, on a
Yeah.
deep ball one-on-one and faked the out route and just went straight up on the fade. Like he'll start to trust those guys more. I think he's coming from a spot where he didn't have that trust always with the receivers, and he was having to make a lot of the plays on his own. And look, that is the case right now. He's going to run for 1,000 yards this year. So he's bringing an element that other quarterbacks aren't bringing you when they're in the game. So yes, there's going to be probably some give and take that you have there with, he's not going to be a pure passer that you want him to be in terms of, I don't know, 70-something% passer so far. I can't hate on it. I'm in the camp that he's played very well. But I think people expecting like perfection in the passing game aren't really sitting here and understanding kind of the quarterback Jayden Daniels is. And he'll settle in and realize how good these players are and that he doesn't have to make every play. But right now you'll take it because it's won you a couple games and obviously got you close to a win in the first game when he was definitely the best player you had.
Yes. All right. Next question is about the run game, and I think I'm gonna do my film study today on the run game, so we'll skip over that one. Raspberry 4. Appreciate your question though, as far as diversity in the run game. So I'm gonna look a little bit more into that as far as what changed from the first half to second half against Mississippi State. Um, the diversity isn't quite there, but coaches don't really. If there's one thing I've learned as far as run game, a lot of coaches just stick to what they know and what they trust in the run game. So that's kind of how I approach that. But I'll get a film study up on that in today at some point. All right, next question. With Will and Emery only being freshmen, do you think in the future with Zalen's Hurd and Tyree Adams, they'll move to guards next to them too?
It'll be interesting talking about two guys who are top 10 offensive tackles, both committed to LSU out of Louisiana, and they'll be on this team next year. If we're presuming Emery and Will have starting spots and that those two guys can make some early run and kind of put themselves in position to start competing for playing time, I think they're just finding ways to get the best five on the field, because I think that if you look at what Kelly did at Notre Dame and what a lot of these Midwest schools do, Iowa, Wisconsin, that have great offensive lines, they'll recruit all the tackles in the world and they'll just keep moving them inside, and you just get more athletic across the offensive line, and more athletic as you get more of these guys who can handle themselves in the run game, but obviously pass pro really well, and they have some natural athleticism to them. Like I think the days of these, like Anthony Bradford would be a rare exception, and I'm not sure Kelly and them would even go after him at this point if this were like coming around again and he was recruit. Now, right now, he's probably one of the best five offensive linemen they have, but I just think he's to be 350 plus and playing at tackle and guard is so far from the norm. So yeah, I think a lot of these guys like Adams and Zalance, who are 285 to kind of 305, are kind of going to be the norm for them, and they don't really care if it's a tackle or guard or putting them at center and cross training them, whatever it might be. I think they're fine with it. That's kind of the mold of linemen they're going to go after.
Yeah, I don't have
And we're
anything
seeing
to
it now. They're moving these guys to center, to tackle, to guard. They're going to find a way to put the best five guys on the field.
Yeah, and Emery can obviously bump inside if they need him to. I forgot to attribute that question. That's from Cordell, spelled with an O and a 4. Next question. Are there any guys we haven't seen much of this year that could be significant contributors later this year? I guess aside from Fuchsia and Banks, I'm thinking about young guys who are not playing big roles but have potential to move into the rotation at Russell Bowe. Jeez, I didn't.
I assume he means true freshman.
True
I know that was
freshman,
like a later question. Oh
young
yeah, okay.
players.
That's we can group this question here with Famous Amos's, who says who's up next as far as freshmen that we haven't seen yet, and is there
Yeah, we
another
can group
name to
those
check
together.
chance to crack the starting lineup with Perkins, Emery, etc. I guess etc. in that case, would be like a Mason Taylor at tight end. So those would be
This is tough.
Emery, Will Campbell, Mason Taylor, and Harold Perkins would be three guys who are obviously playing a lot right now. I'm not sure. I'll go Quincy
Yeah,
Wiggins.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Quincy Wiggins is what. Tyge
Yeah.
Hill, he said Brian Kelly said would be the backup
They
defensive
just don't
tackle.
have any more. Yeah, it's him and Bryce Langston. That's all the guys
So
left they have on the interior. So, and I think Wiggins is versatile enough to play a couple different spots,
I
especially
agree.
if they kind of have multiple looks. So, I mean, he's probably 280 as a freshman. But I can't remember if he did get in this past weekend. He definitely dressed, but he said he would only play special teams. Kelly did, but he said he should be 100% for this game, New Mexico. So we'll see Wiggins for the first time as a true freshman this weekend, at least
Yeah.
in some sort of D line role.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody else that'll really contribute this year as far as freshmen go. I mean, I don't think we see
And
DeMarre
Walker
Tolan.
Howard's, yeah, Walker Howard's taking a red shirt.
Yeah, I don't think we see Jordan Allen too much, or LaTerrence Walsh, or Jalen Davis Robinson too much at all, barring health. Knock on wood. So
Well, yeah,
yeah, I think
we may see some Landon Ibieta if at receiver. Just they don't have a very deep room there. We've already seen some walk-ons get run,
yeah, I
and
mean
then
he's
at end of games they've been sitting on Chris Hilton and Kyron Lacey and kind of just letting them have all the runs. So yeah, I would think if Ibieta gets healthy and gets in the groove, I think he's like the 8th scholarship receiver they have. So
yep,
he can play in some games and still not burn a red shirt.
yeah. All right. I don't have the question thing up anymore. Here it is.
Let's see.
I
I
have it.
got you.
Go ahead.
Um,
I have it up now.
Okay, well, someone asked about Jack Bech being utilized more. I guess we sort of already touched on that. Do we expect to see more creativity within the offense as the season continues with run schemes, etc.? Okay, I guess you're going to kind of touch on that, like you said in
Yeah, I
the
mean,
film
I
study.
think, like I said, like I said before, coaches are what they are in a lot of ways, and while I think they'll continue to add things, obviously, it's kind of like at this point in the year, I feel like it's a lot more preparing for the opponent and running things that will hurt the opponent more so than just adding things to
It's a good
add
way to put
things.
it.
Like you don't just add things to add things. You add things to try to catch the opponent off guard. So I think they could, but I don't think it'll be anything crazy.
Russell DeBoe had asked the question about significant contributors. Um, then Josh Talford had asked that other question about the run scheme and kind of different concepts. JWP, does JD5, Jayden Daniels have enough arm strength for the deep ball? You want to take this one? I'd
I
say
think he does.
yes.
I
Yeah.
definitely I think I definitely I know he does. I watched his tape at Arizona State and he made plenty of deep shots. A lot of their offense was very simplistic. Take your shots when you have them because they didn't have a ton else going on. They weren't a bad team last year, but he took plenty of shots last year. He made throws. I thought actually his long ball was solid last year with Arizona State. He made plenty of throws on that. So I think it's fine. I don't think it's his inability to make throws. I think that it is has it been pretty conservative as far as play calling goes, as far as what they're doing with their passing concepts, and then also um, I think a lot of times he's in his own head, like we talked about earlier. He just does not want to make that one mistake that cost them the game because they have so much talent on the defense. They have talent on the outside. He just doesn't want to be the reason that they lose at times.
Let's see. That was JWP. Okay. Perseus01, did Seven Banks play in the Mississippi State game? I thought Coach Kelly said he would get out there. Did he? Did he get to some rotation? Maybe he didn't record any stats. So
I'm not gonna lie, I do not remember off the top of my head. I do not remember seeing him out there. I check personnel pretty frequently, but I don't write it
I don't
down.
remember seeing him in on any plays. He didn't
I
record any stats.
Yeah, I don't. I know they have a participation list. If you go to the stats, like box score, and then scroll over to participation, I could check that. But I did not see him out there, and so even if he did play, it
Okay,
wasn't
here you go. Yeah, I've
watchable.
got it. Dressed out but did not play. So
Okay.
guess he's kind of still. That's his first time dressing out. So inching closer to getting on the field for the first time following a hip injury that I think was the final 3 games of last year. So we're coming up on about 11 months probably since he's played
I
football.
mean, that was the concern. That was the concern when he came over here
No
was his
doubt.
health, and
And that's
then
why they took a lot of transfer corners. I mean, I think he was one of the last ones, really.
yeah,
They had a lot of these other guys in the boat already, and then added Colby Richardson. out of McNeese over the summer. But yeah, we'll see him eventually. But even
Yeah.
then, Kelly said, look, he's going to have to shake off some rust and he'll just be a rotational guy. But they'll take all they can get at cornerback right now. They're playing well there, but they can't afford any injuries.
Yeah.
All right.
The next question's about running backs, and like I
Run
said,
game. Old Bourbon and Cheerios with that one. Gets a shout out to Todd Grantham in there. All right, all right. Again, your mailbag or your film study on running backs says now you're pot committed here because
yeah, I know.
three
Now
people
I
asked.
have to answer all three of these in the film study. So there you go.
Oh, good. Yeah, give
Appreciate
them
y'all
shout
asking.
outs there. Who's next? Oh, we asked the famous Amos one about the freshman. We kind of both agreed it was Quincy Wiggins. Any more news on Noah Cain? Didn't see him get any touches against State. Josh Talford, he did not get any touches against State. In fact, Josh Williams sort of ate up the backup touches beyond Goodwin, who got 9 carries. John Emery was back for the first time in 15 games. Coach Kelly said don't expect a big breakout game. We're going to work him in slowly. 11 carries, 32 yards, so 3 yards a pop, not great there. Goodwin, an 8.3 yard a carry effort, but obviously a big chunk of that was the 47-yarder where he kind of put the game away. Josh Williams had just 1 carry, went for 7 yards, but also got targeted 4 times in the pass game, which was second most behind anyone after Malik Neighbors, who obviously had a huge game. I just don't. Noah Cain was stressed out. I just don't think he's playing right now because touches are now going to 3 guys, which they had been going to 3 guys all along. But now that Emery's back, it seems that Josh Williams is the 3rd guy.
For me, coming out of spring ball when they got Noah Cain, I did the rankings of the 15 transfers that they got. Right, I did that back whenever they were finishing up. This was before Seven Banks was added, I think. Noah Cain was either the last one or second to last. Personally, I was very underwhelmed by his film at Penn State. I didn't think, I mean, he was coming off an injury last year, I know, but I didn't think he had the explosiveness. I just didn't see it. I thought he's a good pass protector, and he's good awareness. I just didn't see him being that RB1 or RB2 even for LSU this year, especially with Armani Goodwin. Personally, I just didn't see it over the offseason. And this isn't to take a victory lap, but a lot of people were saying they could see him being the starter. They could see him being a really talented back. And I just didn't see it. Maybe he pops back on the scene. Maybe this was just a one-game thing, but I don't see him being better than Armani. I would give the ball to Armani Goodwin 1,000 times over him personally. So you have John Emery back now. You work him back. You get Emery Goodwin 1-2 punch. You let Josh Williams come in there for the pass game or pass pro or whatever he's in there for as a third back. You let Cain do that as well at times, sure. But to me, it's Goodwin and it is Emery. Like those are the 2 backs to me at this point. So
Certainly looked like it after that State game. Okay, 2 more. What specifically did the new strength and conditioning team do to have LSU prepared, and how does that differ from the Moffitt approach? Famous Amos asked that. We've heard Kelly circle conditioning after Florida State, after Mississippi State, saying it was sort of really evident to him that the guys were well trained and well conditioned, and they never looked winded late into those games, which allowed them to kind of close with both games with really big second halves. I think without knowing all the nuances of it, I don't think they're probably they're not lifting different weights or anything in that. I think the biggest thing with Jake Flint and his staff, which is a new staff, is they Moffitt is from this generation that sort of set the standard for what weightlifting was. For a good 20, 30 years. Well, as time changes and evolves, all those people do too. But guys like Jake Flint were assistant strength guys in this era, and were really heavily into analytics and into the data behind it and into all the sort of different new technologies that can come with taking your strength and conditioning program to another level. And I think that they combine that with obviously coming from Notre Dame, which has been sort of a pipeline of really good strength and conditioning coordinators in this new era. Bama, Indiana, when they were hot, had guys from ND. So I think it's just probably a lot more new age in a way,
Yeah.
and whatever they're doing seems to be getting some results right now.
Yeah, and that was the main thing talking to players was you can tell they're kind of fascinated slash enamored slash intrigued by the technology that they're wearing, that they are, seeing on a daily basis. It's still very fresh to them. And so with that being the case, I think that that's what we have to point the finger to. I think you worded it well. I think that's kind of what it is. But the conditioning aspect of this team, I mean, if that's really, and I think that is kind of what separated them from Mississippi State in the fourth quarter. To outscore a team 21-0 at that clip. I mean, you have to chalk it up to conditioning. So yeah, shout out
I
to Coach Flynn, all them.
I do want to say this too, because I think that this the approach that this strength and conditioning staff, this staff as a whole, I guess, but is taking seems very more so than I've ever seen it before. And this is just the way things are trending now with kind of everything being monitored. But the strength and conditioning staff and the nutrition staff are very much aligned. Alignment is strong, as Kelly would love to see, because even when these guys go to eat in the cat, like you're weighing in before, you know where you're at, you know what your target goal is, and it's just little things every time that's, hey, look, you've got a mission here. It's you're staying in shape. Here's where you need to be. If you're off, you need to lighten up today. If you're good to go, you can eat anything you want, right? If you're putting on weight,
Yeah.
but I think it's all monitored so much more closely, and then so much more in the player's face. Like you can see when they put out videos of them all working out, like there's like monitors mounted everywhere in there now with running, all their data, and guys walking around with iPads. So I think it's, as you said, the players are enamored by it just because I think it's a lot more technical than it's ever been for them before. And again, whatever they're doing seems to be working, because we don't see any hands on hips really ever in games right now, which is surprising.
Yeah. All right, last question. Is that a J or an I? That's a J, right? J
That looks like a
Reyes?
J Reyes. That looks like a J Reyes to me.
All right. J
I'd
Reyes
go forth with it.
1650. Who do you see being our biggest test prior to Bama? I'm gonna say Tennessee. Because
Has
that's
to
the
be
schedule,
right.
right? Goes Auburn to Florida to Tennessee. That's the stretch. So
New Mexico,
yes, New Mexico.
New Mexico,
New Mexico.
then Auburn,
Then Auburn.
then Tennessee, then Florida, then Ole Miss.
Ooh. Tennessee or Ole Miss. Ooh. Uh I'd probably say Tennessee slightly. Ole Miss looked good against Georgia Tech though. Jesus. One of those two. I'd probably say Tennessee though, personally. Tennessee scares me. But Tennessee's at home. Ole Miss is Ole Miss at home as well?
Ole Miss
Yeah,
is
so
at
Ole Miss is at
Florida's.
home as
Florida's the
well.
one that's on the road.
Yeah, okay. I mean, either one
And
of those
had you
two.
asked this question after week one, we would have been slamming Florida as the answer, right?
Yeah, how quickly things change. And now Florida's a 10.5 point dog to Tennessee. So
So
there you
Tennessee's
go.
the answer.
Yeah,
This
I'm gonna go
should
Tennessee.
Tennessee's supposed to be good now. So that game doesn't happen often before LSU and Tennessee, and now that it's in Tiger Stadium, that'll be one of the best game day atmospheres of the year. Certainly, if they can win a couple, two more games and get to that one at what 5-4-1, whatever it would be,
Yeah, four
four
and
and
one.
one.
That's the thing. The
So
fortunate
I'll
part
say
of
Tennessee. There'll be a lot of pressure on that game to win.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. Getting getting Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Mississippi State at home this year, like that is a huge boost scheduling wise.
And
That's
Bama.
I mean, yeah, and Bama, you throw Bama in
Well, you're
there,
not
so
maybe
like
probably not going to win, but
I mean, yeah, you throw, but you throw them in there. But yes, you get those three games that I highlighted there because they're kind of turn games. If you can get a break here and you can win that game, it changes the outlook of the season a little bit more. So obviously Bama would as well, but I'm not really considering them at this moment. So all right, we did it. We ran through them. Avoided some of them
done.
because I said I'm doing a film study on them, so I will have
Yep.
a film study on them. So no worries. But covered everything. We appreciate y'all's questions. Um, Man, I posted on the board pretty late yesterday too, and we still got
Yeah.
flooded with
Well,
questions. So
Raspberry 4, um, Josh Talford, bourbon and Cheerios. Everyone's trying to figure out about the run game, my guy. So,
All right, I have a job today.
shameless plug. Matthew's got
a job.
work to do. He's got film study to get after. Check it on the site.
I won't eat until I'm done. There we go.
All right, shouldn't take you too long.
All right, we thank y'all for joining us again. If you're watching on the YouTube, are we at 1,000 yet, Shay? Let's see.
We ask that at the end of everyone when we have to ask everyone to follow. And then
992. We're 8 away.
Oh man, you're Matthew's taking on our YouTube page, and he's very excited at the growth early on. So everyone's done a good job. But if 2 more people could step up here, how many?
8.
Was it 8?
8. 992. Okay. We're at 992.
10 more people. How about that? Then you can clear the 1,000 mark.
Then I can sleep at night. I'm staying up at night, just hoping, watching the counter tick, just hoping. But yeah, I mean, the podcast or the YouTube side's doing great. The podcast side's doing great. We appreciate all y'all for joining us. I mean, if we're getting a 1.7K views and only have 992 subscribers, something's not adding up. So make sure y'all subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. On the podcast side, leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. For Shay Dixon, I'm Matthew Brune. We'll talk to y'all later.